from a public health perspective, there are two real target behaviours that we're trying to change. One is an increase in hand washing, and the second is a reduction in the amount of time that we spend touching our face and the number of times that we touch our face. So with regards to any behaviour, we're looking at it in terms of frequency and duration. So with hand washing, we're trying to increase the duration and the amount of time so that it's an effective hand wash. With regards to face touching, that's a little bit more tricky. Face touching is a habit that we have developed from a very early age, and it's something that the Journal of Occupational and Environmental Hygiene have noted that we do up to 20 times per day. Per hour.
Yeah.
My apologies. Up to 20 times per hour. So
that's... where would body language analysts be if you couldn't analyse people touching their faces?
I know, exactly.
Or rubbing their chins or whatever.
Well, there's going to be a change in that, hopefully. So we classify those as automatic behaviours. So if we're trying to change an automatic behaviour like face touching, and we know the inverted triangle of our eyes, nose and mouth are the key areas that we have to avoid touching over the next period of time. For those automatic behaviours, it's really tricky. We're going to find ourselves having to change a habit that has been established long throughout our lifespan. One of the first things we need to do is to make that behaviour conscious. We need to become aware of it and identify the cues in our environment for this. One of the best ways to do it is to look at what we call response interruption. So, for instance, if you're wearing contact lenses and you find that your eyes are itchy, maybe it's time to start wearing glasses again, because those glasses actually act as a response interruption. We need to create reminders for ourselves that we don't touch our face as frequently as we usually do. So for instance, you can do things like write on the back of your hand. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I have shopping lists and I have my to-do lists and reminders on my hands all the time. So maybe it's time to just write something personal to yourself to interrupt that automatic behaviour. If you wear rings, possibly wear a different ring and use that ring as a reminder to think before you touch your face. So that's really the important thing to consider, is that we need to think. We need to just stop and think before we touch our face.
One thing I just noticed when I was preparing for this conversation, Pádraig, was that if I'm turning the page of a newspaper, I automatically put my tongue on my lip.
I was watching you, Sean.
Or if you're turning a page or something, and it's just, it's just what you will do it automatically.
It's automatic. So as well as that, in behaviour analysis, what we look at are the replacement behaviours that we can use. So we try and create sustainable change in our environment. And the best way to do that is to build new behaviours within our existing routines. So for instance, you might invest in a thimble for the short term, or you might invest in hand sanitizer as well as something to consider. But when we have these embedded into existing routines, that's when they work best. Replacement behaviours might be using a tissue, or ensuring that if we do need to clean our mouth, or if we're coughing into our elbows, but that our hand touching isn't occurring as frequently and it's not posing a risk to public health.
What about wearing these sort of disposable gloves?
Yeah, I suppose, like we said, in order for things to be sustainable, they need to embed into existing habits. Disposable gloves and face masks are useful as reminders for ourselves. So they increase the response effort for us in order to touch our face. If you need to touch your eyes now, you have to lift up your glasses. When you're doing that, you're saying, oh, should I actually be doing this? So it's interrupting, and it's bringing that behaviour from the automatic back to the conscious. And we're becoming aware of our behaviour, and that's really, really important at this time.
How long does it take to change a habit like touching your face if you're doing it 24 or 26 times an hour?
All of these things depend on how embedded that habit is. And for something like touching our face, we're really not aware of it. So it could take up to a month for that to happen, for it to become automatic. So in the short term, we have to bring that automatic behaviour to the conscious. And for us to do that, for us to change any habit, we need to feel uncomfortable. So there will be a slight discomfort that we feel interrupting our normal and natural response. If we have an itch on our face, it's not our natural response to grab a tissue in order to do that. We feel a little bit uncomfortable doing that, but that's when we know that we're doing the right thing. That's when we know that we're moving one habit from an automatic behaviour to a conscious behaviour. If you think about any behaviour change, getting up in the morning, if you're used to hitting the snooze button, you're going to feel uncomfortable the first few times that you get up on the first alarm. But after a while, they say up to 21 days to a month, that becomes automatic. And now we're not thinking about it, we're just doing it as a habit.
I don't think you've touched your face for the last
I've
10
consciously
minutes that
not
you've been sitting
touched my
here.
face, and I've warned all the Hermitage Green lads as well that they're not to touch their face the whole way through. And it does take conscious effort. Our brains are like rivers. If you can imagine our brains like a river trying to flow towards the sea, it goes through the path of least resistance. So we don't like cognitive effort. So our brains don't like the cognitive effort of having to change a habit. So I'm having to think really hard here to make sure that I'm not touching my face, or if I am, that I'm using an alternative behaviour. So I have a tissue beside me, or I will make sure that there are reminders on my hands. Like, you know, I took a hairband this morning just as a reminder to make sure that I think before I do touch.
Okay, I'll switch the ring from one finger to the other, one hand, but I draw the line at writing on my hand. But look, we leave it there for now. Pádraig Walsh, Behaviour Analyst with Actualise Academy. Thank you very much indeed.